For far too long, the effective management of the customer's experience has been considered a soft skill. But today, successful companies recognize that the customer experience is king, or from my perspective, is queen. Welcome to CX Unplugged. I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez, your host, and in this series, you will hear from me and other industry experts about how prioritizing the customer experience led to amazing outcomes. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to CX Unplugged, your customer experience podcast on the Multifamily Media Network. Thanks for joining us today. We have an amazing guest that I'm really excited to introduce everyone to and get some really great sharing information together. Her name is Briana Fritts, and she is the resident hospitality manager at Thompson Thrift, where she brings a blend of creativity and strategy to elevate the resident experience. In her role, Briana ensures that each new team is trained to deliver exceptional hospitality at every stage of the resident journey, from the first phone call all the way to move out. And her industry path began in 2014 while working in student housing as a community assistant. And then her path led to multifamily housing in 2017, where she helped launch her first lease up. She quickly became known for her engaging resident events and her unique ability to build close-knit communities. So when that community eventually sold in 2022, she transitioned into a marketing seat with her then corporate office, where she further shaped her resident-focused vision. Now, in a newly crafted role at Thompson Thrift, Briana combines her passion for hospitality with her creative expertise to redefine the resident experience. And we are so happy to have you here today. Welcome, Briana.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I think today's going to be a really exciting conversation. It was a great kind of recap on some of my history as far as where I came from.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting just to see how people's paths evolve. And I know you and I connected so well too, just on that passion for the hospitality aspect of things and the resident prospect experience throughout that whole life cycle, that whole resident life cycle. And you guys are really doing some great things that you've kind of really spearheaded there with your company. And I know you've got properties all over the country as well. Do you know how many states are you guys in now? Do you know?
We're in a lot. We're all over the nation, but our primary locations, we have kind of a scattering around the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're primarily in Florida, in Colorado, and Arizona are our three primary markets.
Yeah. So there's some great data. I feel like there's that information from all of those sites can really bring some relevant ideas to our listeners today on, 10 ways to really elevate the prospect and resident experience. So
yeah.
We talked a little bit about, and I'm wondering if you can share with our listeners how you kind of go around to all the properties and conduct these hospitality workshops to sort of get some great ideas going and create some kind of baseline expectations and so forth. But you don't leave it at baseline. Tell me a little bit about those workshops, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really fun. Thompson Thrift essentially develops about 8 to 12 new communities a year. Historically, is kind of what we've done. And anytime a new community has their full team in place, that's my cue to kind of go out and host that hospitality workshop. It's a really fun day. It's a full day of just brainstorming, activities, exercises, mock tours, a lot of ways to kind of get the team members thinking about the prospect and resident experience and how hospitality fits in. And so we talk a lot about service recovery and, when someone's coming in hot and heavy, how do you handle that? But then also, kind of elevating the experience as far as how do you upgrade, the stand and smile, right? When somebody comes in, maybe you meet them at the door. So a lot of these visits are just a huge brainstorming session with the team members to get their heads together and think about ways that they can elevate that prospect and resident experience at multiple touch points through the first phone call, the first tour, when they apply, move-in day, their first resident event. What do all of those things look like, and how can they elevate, each of those things? So the tips that we gathered today are really a cool thing that we've brought together. And these are all ideas that we've gotten from these teams. So they're absolutely essential in kind of building out what the expectation is for Thompson Thrift.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys, too, again, just with the locations of everything, you really get some great feedback and some input into these ideas. So, well, I want to encourage all of our podcast listeners and or watchers to, get your note-taking hats on, or pens in hand, or laptop in front, or however you're going to take notes. But we've got some 10 really actionable takeaways that I think you can use and maybe even implement at some properties ASAP. So these are really some great brainstorming. And again, we're really happy that you're willing to share it. So number one was on tours, kind of letting potential residents interact with as many spaces as possible. I thought that was really interesting. Tell us a little bit maybe about that.
Yeah. So I think in our industry, right, it's very common in leasing 101 trainings to tell them, open the wow fridge. You want them interacting with the space. But I think we can go a little bit above that. And when I had a brainstorming session with one of our teams in Colorado, we actually had an intern there who had an ingenious idea. And she was like, we have cornhole boards. Why don't, when we're passing the pool area and we go to the cornhole board, why don't we just see who can make one on first while we're kind of getting that information? It makes it fun. They can engage with the space a little bit. They can see kind of what it feels like to live here. So I think that was a really fun idea that, is a little bit outside of the box, right? That's not an experience you think you're going to have when you're touring an apartment community, but man, you're going to remember that apartment community now, right? And so I think we can also think about it, in different forms. Also, maybe you're walking by the pool area and you sit down in the cabana and collect information that way. Or maybe in the fall or winter time, you're sitting by the fireplace. Or if you go to the clubhouse area and you have one of those bean to cup coffee machines, that's always fun for residents to interact with. So that could be something where you tell them, hey, this is where you come get your morning coffee every day. Do you want to brew yourself a cup? I can show you how to do it. Maybe they want hot chocolate. Maybe they want tea. But getting them interacting with different spaces around the community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be every space within the community, but pick one or two that they get to have an experience with. And obviously, you're going to kind of take note about what their style is. Maybe they're in a rush. Maybe you're not going to do anything like that. But there's also easy things you can do to get them interacting with that space. One of my favorite things that a team has done was actually our Slate team in Fishers, Indiana. And I followed them on a tour. I kind of just wanted to see what their process was currently looking like. And I thought this was such a great idea. So we have smart locks right on the front doors. And the prospect was finished with their tour. We were leaving the apartment, and the leasing consultant was like, hey, do me a favor and give that lock a high five. Just put your hand in front of it and give it a high five. And the prospect did it, and they put their hand in front of it and it locked the door. That's kind of how the door locks. You put your hand in front of it and wave. But I loved that he said, hey, put your hand in front of it, give it a high five. And it was just such a fun way. And that person, it was so cute. The prospect got so giddy and she's like, oh, that was so cool. And so getting them interacting with those features that you're selling so that it's more actions and experiences versus just words, I think really takes on, that interactivity, and it makes your community stand out when they're touring those spaces, because they're going to remember experiences over words any day. So this is a really easy way you can kind of stand out and above the competition.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I mean, so you're creating an immersive experience, not just, a walk and talk or a show and tell, but an immersive experience. That is awesome. I love those ideas.
Yeah.
Another one that you guys have on there is asking community managers to reach out to new residents with a personal welcome before move-in. This is something I love also, and really believe in, because so often the people who are moving in, they engage with the leasing teams, but not necessarily with the community manager. So that sounds like a really good one. Tell me a little bit kind of about that.
Yeah, that's exactly where that came from. We actually had several community managers kind of come up to me and they're like, man, residents kind of only see me as, the enforcer, the person who's enforcing the rules. And so we kind of came up with some really strategic ideas to get them in front of those residents sooner and kind of building that connection from the get-go. And this was one of the really easy ways we thought to do this, is just kind of baking it into a weekly routine. Maybe on Thursday or Fridays, you're calling all of next week's move-ins and you're just saying, hey, I see that you're moving in next week. I know that you're working with Alyssa. We're so excited to have you. I'm the community manager here. I just wanted to introduce myself, see how you're feeling, see if you have any questions. And that really just kind of sets that expectation and sets that tone for what their experience is going to be like even before they move in, which I think is really imperative. I think there was a stat I saw somewhere that said moving is the third most stressful life event behind death and divorce. I'm
Right?
like, man, if that's true, we really need to take this seriously and make sure that they're being cared for, especially during this moving process. And so this is a really easy way to just kind of get ahead of it. And it's something that I don't think, applicants and future residents are expecting to happen. And so when it does, it's just one of those, oh, that was so delightful. How nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It creates kind of that wow moment.
Yep, exactly.
Um, so another one that you have here is acknowledge all requests within 24 hours. And we hear maintenance service turnaround within 24 hours a lot, but we don't hear acknowledge all requests within 24 hours. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, so this actually came from Jay Bear. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He is a customer experience speaker,
Ooh.
and he's so funny, so witty. I saw him speak at a conference, and I was so moved by his message. And it was all about just the importance of speed when you're interacting with your
Mhm.
customers. And a lot of, his customer experience knowledge, can be applied to any industry. And so in our industry, one of the things he was talking about was the importance of building a culture of responsiveness within your team and what that means and how that relates to, if you're going to get more leases out of it, if you're going to get better retention out of it. That's absolutely true. You're going to get all of those things. So one of the things I challenge everybody to do is, can you guarantee, ask the question, can you guarantee a response within 24 hours? If you don't feel comfortable putting that on a plaque in your office and saying that that's something that we can guarantee, I would challenge everybody to see what you need to do to make sure you can. So what operations, what procedures need to change to make sure you can give that response within 24 hours. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that you don't necessarily need to solve the problem immediately, but you have to acknowledge it right away. And so the biggest thing there is, when someone reaches out to you, say it's a resident and they need something, they need an update on, their HVAC work order, and all of your maintenance team, they're out doing other things, you're not hearing back from them. You're in the background trying to get them that answer, but they don't know that you're doing that. And so if you were to just say, that's a great question, let me find out for you, versus doing all of that kind of back end work without their knowledge, I think it's really important to just acknowledge all requests within 24 hours. And that means that you're just responding to them in that initial, I've heard you, I've got you, I'm finding the answer, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So that way it takes the task off of their shoulders and they're no longer having to think about, oh, are they ignoring me? Did they not see my request? What's going on? They know that you've got it and you're working on a solution. So it takes it off their plate. And so what I would recommend is, if you're going to implement something like this, make sure just at the end of each day, look at all the emails you haven't responded to and just do a mass reply to everybody. Just say, hey, just wanted to let you know I got your message. I'm going to get back to you. Wasn't able to touch it today, or I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, but letting them know, great question, I will find out for you, I think is the biggest takeaway here.
I think, Brianna, I love that. And it reminds me, as you were talking about that, it reminds me of something that I train in one of my segments also, which is, get back to people. And figure out what you can do now and what you can do later.
Yep.
So, and I have now and laters. I bring the candy into my segments to really reinforce that piece. So that 24-hour period is so important, like you said, just to make sure people feel heard. Like, I hear you. I may not be able to solve it right now, but here's what I can do right now.
Yep.
I can make sure the team is aware of this and that they get that in their queue to work on. And what I can do later is follow up with you and let you know when it's been completed, or let you know what we have done, or if we have to order it apart. But I'll keep you, abreast of the ongoing evolution of this particular issue or concern or whatever it is, project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I think, psychologically, people like to know where they're at in the
Hmm.
process, right? We're wired to want to know what's next. And so I think that's a really important thing. And it's something so easy that we can do. So really, it's just, you don't have to solve it right now, but you do have to acknowledge it right now.
That's a great point. Great point. And I think it also goes to people's, I think so often the reason people don't do that is because they're like stressed out. They have so much on their plates and they're like,
Hmm.
I don't know the answer and I don't know how to get the answer. I just can't make
Yeah.
another decision right now. But
Yep.
you're not saying make the decision. You're just saying just let them know I got it. I heard
Yep.
you and we're in the queue. We're going to get that taken care of.
That's right.
And I'll let you know what our next steps are. Yeah, I love that one. I love it.
I know. It's awesome. Jay Bear, if you haven't heard him, definitely go check him out. He's got a great weekly newsletter, makes me laugh all the
I
time.
love it. I'm going to check it out. I will check it out. Um, this next one you have maintenance, keeping dog treats on the golf cart and hand them out to pets as you're out and about. And I love that one. And the other thing I wrote down here with respect to that is, you know what? Also make sure you have the gluten-free ones, right?
Oh, I
Because
love that. That's
so
so nice.
many pets, I mean, I feel like so many people are gluten-free and then their pets are gluten-free also. And so if you
Mhm.
have each one even, and you could even take it that next level and say like, is your pet gluten-free? I have a
Mhm.
gluten-free or a regular. That would blow
Yeah,
people's mind.
it totally would. And I'm just thinking about it, if you have it in your pocket and you ask them, hey, can your dog have a treat? And they say no, they're actually gluten free. You pick one out of your other pocket and you're like, here you
Yeah,
go. That'd be such a cool thing.
it really would. That's awesome. I love that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I think residents love it. Anytime you acknowledge their pet of any kind. So this is another bonus tip. But if you're in their apartment doing a service request and you're following up about it with them later and you're like, I just wanted to let you know that Roxy was amazing. She was so good when we were there. Like, they love that. So talk about their pets, interact with them. And then I think too, I mean, if you're driving around in your golf cart, you see a dog, you stop for a treat, it gives you that opportunity to talk to that resident and just kind of have a natural conversation. Maybe you find out that they have a service request that needs done, or maybe they're looking for an update. Now that is something that they get to take off their list. And they're like, oh, that's so nice. I just went out for a walk and I have all these things off my list because this person came and talked to me. So I think that really makes a difference too.
Yeah, what a sense of community too that's driving. Great sense of
Yeah.
community. Um, I like this one, celebrate resident birthdays. So what sort of things do you guys do in that regard?
Oh, this is so cool. So I have a few tips for this one. So the one that I was intending to share today, I'll share two, because we're kind of doing a twofold kind of impact right now. But we have a district manager who was a community manager at the time. And what she used to do is she used to pull a demographics report every month. And on the first, she would send an email to everybody, every resident with a birthday that month. And she would send them, hey, just wanted to celebrate, saw that it was your birthday this month. I hope you have an awesome month. Here's a link to a list of local birthday freebies. So maybe, at AMC theaters, you get a free popcorn, or Cheesecake Factory, you get a free cheesecake, or Chick-fil-A and Crumble, you get a free cookie. So she gave them that link where they could pick out how they wanted to treat themselves. And it's not anything, it wasn't a heavy lift on our end. Those lists exist everywhere online. I mean, you can search your city, your county, your state, and it'll come up with a list of all of those local freebies that businesses are offering for your birthday. And it was just something that really kind of levels up that experience. I don't think residents are expecting to get that. and it just makes it really nice. And one of the things that we do have standardized in our industry right now, in our organization, is we have birthday cards that go out to every resident. So we have them do the same thing. They pull that demographics report, and then they note down all of the birthdays, and all of the team, they have these birthday cards we've designed in marketing, we've sent out to the teams, and then everybody signs the card with a little happy birthday or thank you. So they take one of their monthly team meetings to fill out all of these cards. And then our apartment life teams deliver them to the residents on the first week of the month to make sure that they get their birthday in time. So it's just a really nice celebration. It's a very easy thing to do, especially if you're, wanting to make it that email with that list of birthday freebies versus, going out and delivering those cards. But there's a lot of ways that you can just kind of acknowledge those special moments in a resident's life, and it enhances the experience a ton.
And who doesn't love, a personalized letter? I think I even saw, I was just reading an article just like last week that was talking about how the younger generations in particular, since I guess because they've come up through so much technology, that they are really enjoying that more personalized interaction. So that handwritten card too can be so meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So that is awesome. And you just blew my mind with the freebie thing. Like that is such an easy implementation. Like I feel like our listeners can that's something they can go and implement right away.
Yeah,
Thank
you can
you,
do that
Briana and
today.
Thompson Thrift. Yeah, that's awesome. Great
Yeah, we need
idea.
to give the credit to Beverly. She is our district manager. That was her idea. She is absolutely amazing and absolutely killing it in her new position as district manager.
Yay, Beverly. Keep slaying it, girlfriend. Thanks for the ideas. Okay, so I love on number 6, you have spark friendly competition with the cleanest building contest. Now,
Yes.
what does this mean? Cleanest
Okay.
building contest?
Yeah, this was a very, very cool conversation. This was a conversation I had with our maintenance team at the depot in Raymore, Colorado, and they came up with this. But we were talking about how do we help our residents keep the community clean along with us, right? Because there's only so many team members that are going around and picking up pet waste, and they're picking up trash, and they're picking up all of these things and making sure the windows aren't smudgy. And how do we make sure that our residents are helping us with this effort, right? Because it can't always be on the team. We have a million things going on. Residents have a million things going on, but how can we kind of partner with them? And this is something they came up with. They're like, well, what if we did a quarterly competition where all of the residents, kind of got together, and the building that was the cleanest would get, a pizza party at the end of the quarter. And we would kind of go and do random walks once a month that nobody knew when they were happening. So you can't just clean, right before the voting happens. But you would get that opportunity, every month, that our team would just kind of do a random check-in around all the buildings and kind of give them a rating of what's the cleanliness like, what's it looking like around here. And then the winning building could just be celebrated, right? And so this was a really, really unique idea. And I remember when I was living in an apartment community back in 2016, and we didn't have cleaners. We lived in an older community. I think it was about 40 years old. So they didn't have the same kind of standards as, luxury communities have, like Thompson Thrift. And so what my neighbors and I did, and this isn't something we even talked about, this was just something that happened, but we liked to come home to a clean environment. So I would notice that, sometimes I would pop out with the vacuum and vacuum our breezeway just because it was getting, there was a bunch of leaves and salt from the snow. And then sometimes my neighbor would come out and vacuum the breezeway. And I just thought it was a really nice neighborly thing to do. And imagine if it was a competition, so many people would kind of lean in, and then you kind of gamify it and make it fun. And then it helps residents help you keep the community clean. And I've always said, in our trainings, we kind of talk about, dirty bathrooms. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but when the toilet paper, you pull it and a tiny little piece falls to the ground, and you're in a gas station bathroom and it is filthy, I am not reaching down on that dirty floor and picking that up, right? It's just going to stay there, and they need to clean their bathroom. Or
Right.
if I'm in a pristine bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
if a tiny little piece of toilet paper falls, I am absolutely going to grab that and make sure that I'm helping with that community. So the cleaner the community, the more likely your residents are going to help you anyway. So the cleaner it is, I think this competition would just kind of help spark that. So that was a really, really great idea by the maintenance team at the depot. And I do need to check in with them to see if they ever did it, because I thought that was really, really fun.
What a great idea. Yeah. And how fun that the maintenance team, came up with the idea too. By
Yeah,
the way, it
amazing.
sounds like you were a really good neighbor. I mean, and resident to go out there. I'm sure the management team there really loved you. They're like, oh, that's the one over there. She goes out and vacuums the hallways for us and everything. So that
Yeah,
was
that was
great.
more for me. That was for selfish reasons. I was like,
Yeah.
I have a guest coming over today. We're gonna make this clean.
Right. Right. Okay. What number are we on? Oh, we're on number
We're number
7. So these
7.
are 7. I mean, these are some great ideas, and I hope our listeners are really taking notes, because if I didn't have these as notes already, I would be taking notes, because these are some really great ideas. And I'm so excited to be sharing this with people. You've got on number 7 says we need to ditch the breakfast on the go, right? And upgrade these resident events. What kind of things are you talking about with that?
Yeah. So breakfast on the go is it's always my go-to as far as the event that needs to go away. I totally get that it
Go with the
is.
breakfast on the go.
Yeah,
We gotta.
exactly. I just feel like we can level up. I feel like we can do better. That was one of the things, when I leased up my first community, that was one of the things that I was known for, was events and creating community through events and doing things that were a little bit above the industry standard that surprised people. And they're like, wow, I actually do want to go to this one. I actually do want to participate in this. This is giving me something to do. Uh-oh, my lights went off. Sorry. Um, so essentially, one of the things that we did was a murder mystery potluck dinner. So instead of a Halloween party, we had a murder mystery dinner where everybody got a character card. Everybody that told them, who they were, what kind of, personality they were supposed to kind of have, and then action items. So at 7:30, you have to go into this room and whisper this to this character. And then they all had these things, and the whole night is unfolding. We're trying to figure out, who was murdered and who murdered them. And it was just a really, really cool event. And these are things, I mean, you can purchase these online, right? These are for cheap. You can get it for $20, where they have the character cards already done for you, but it's just something to level up your event. I actually had a resident text me about 6 months ago, and they're like, I still think about that murder mystery party. It was so much fun. I want to do one. So I sent him all my notes so he could do it with his friends. But it's just something that you can kind of elevate a little bit different. I mean, maybe instead of just your traditional pool party where it's just, you call it a pool party and then invite everybody there and you have floaties, maybe it's the Summer Olympics and you have a field day outside and then it ends at the pool, right? Where you have kind of a grill out afterwards and everybody can jump in the pool and cool off. Or maybe you do something where you're giving back to a community. So cornhole for a cause. Maybe you do a competition or a tournament for cornhole or pickleball, and the winning resident gets to donate, X amount of dollars to, charity of their choice. There's a ton of things that you can kind of think of that are different, and upgrading that breakfast on the go and upgrading that pizza party and upgrading just a regular Halloween party and a Christmas party with ugly sweaters. I feel like we can do so much better. So definitely, kind of think outside the box on it and start pinging your team. A lot of teams really want to lean into this. And so let them be creative and give them that space to kind of think it out and come up with some new and unique ideas for our industry.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I would love that, a murder mystery dinner. That sounds awesome.
So fun.
Here's, I got a question for you, because there's, and I've always had a position on this particular question I'm going to ask you, but I'm curious to know what your take on this is. So if you schedule a resident party, I think many of I'm sure a lot of people in our audience have been there, where you schedule a resident event and, you don't have any RSVPs, or, no one is talking about it and going to come. What do you do? What do you do if you've got something scheduled and you have like no RSVPs, or you have like 2 RSVPs, what do you do? What's your
Yeah.
take on that?
So I think, first of all, that's information. That's information that maybe you're not tailoring the event to the demographic that you have. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
information to be like, okay, people aren't interested in this. Or maybe you need to dig into how you're communicating it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
communicating it in person when people are coming by? Are you sending out a mass text? Are you posting it on social media? Are you sending out an email blast? Are you posting it around the community in breezeways and in the elevator? Where is that going? And then also,
Yeah.
I think this kind of begins at the very beginning, right? When somebody first tours, talk about your events, talk about the fun things that you're doing, talk about the ways that you're kind of elevating that experience. There are events that you actually want to be a part of and a way to
Mm-hmm.
meet your neighbors. And you have to really tell residents that this is a place where you get to enjoy your neighbors and you get to meet them. And then that makes them excited and then they want to. Another thing we've started doing is putting an invite to the next event in our move-in gifts. And so that
Oh
way,
yeah.
like part of their move-in gift is an invitation. It's an
Mm-hmm.
invitation to connect with your neighbors. So I think there's some really unique ways, but I do think that begins at the very beginning, talking about it when residents are coming in and paying their rent or asking a question or putting in a service request or renewing their lease, letting them know about what the next event is and just kind of, putting them on the spot and be like, you're going to be there, right? And then once you get to know your residents on a more personal basis, it becomes a lot easier to ask. And then I think it also makes them want to come hang out with you. That
Mm-hmm.
was kind of how I got a lot of our residents to come, is that they were kind of friends with me and they were like, I want to hang out and I want to see what's happening. And then they met a lot of their friends and it was very cool because we saw, people meet at our events that we would host and then now they're in each other's weddings. And that is
Yeah.
such a cool thing to see, but it really does start with the community manager and the on-site team, and you have to be an advocate for those residents and you have to be that bridge and help them, especially the people who are introverts, help them feel comfortable, be their buddy until they have a buddy.
Yeah. 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 Good points. Good points. I love that. I think one of the things too, that can be helpful is even in that prospect experience, maybe let them know as part of your like closing takeaways for them or follow up via email or whatever, is that here's our upcoming events for the month, just
Mm-hmm.
FYI, these are things that we're going to be doing and all of our residents are invited to these. And depending on, various regulations and stipulations that different properties and municipalities may have, you can even invite prospects to some of these events.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of communities do that. I think that's a great idea. I
Hmm.
love when people do that. I think that's a really nice way to just make them feel like a part of the community even before they're a part of the community. It's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, number 8 is be the swan. I mean,
Be
I
the
think we can
swan.
imagine what that means, right? But what does that mean? Tell us, Brianna. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
So this actually comes from two places. It comes specifically from a book written by Will Guidara. It's Unreasonable Hospitality. If you haven't heard of it, it's incredible. Highly
One of my
recommended read.
favorites.
Yep,
Love it.
excellent read. So if you remember, he kind of talks about, kind of that on stage, off stage philosophy as far as, you have a workload in the background, but your priority is who's in front of you. And so the literal quote that he used, and I switched it to our industry, but it says, all a resident should see is a gracefully curved neck and meticulous white feathers sailing across the pond's surface, not the webbed feet churning furiously below, driving the glide. And I think that's so important to remember because it's not saying that you don't have a huge workload. It's not, I totally understand that we're all so busy, but when someone walks into the office, it's your job to keep that composure and to make them feel welcome. And the second piece of kind of where this came from is I had a wonderful mentor, Katrina Green, in the industry, and she was actually kind of who, trained me when I first, entered my first lease up. And she always had the best composure. Anything that happened, anything that was thrown her way, any glitch that we found during the lease up process, she always had a positive attitude about it. She's like, we can fix this. There is nothing that's too big in our world that it can't be fixed. And she embodied this so well. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I was always like, she's goals. I want to be like her when I grow up, because she was just so swan-like. And so she was a workhorse. She was doing a million things in the background, but if you needed something, you were her top priority. And I think that's how we need to treat our residents and any guest who walks through the door, whether it's a vendor, a prospect, a walk-in, an appointment, whoever it is, whatever the circumstance, we need to make sure that they're our priority and they don't necessarily need to be aware of our workload. It's just, a really great reminder to prioritize the prospect and resident experience over the task in front of us.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And I think, it does resonate too. And I think when you say prioritize the resident experience or prospect experience over the task, I think even another way of even saying it too is to prioritize their perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're prioritizing their perspective. How are they receiving this? Not necessarily the whole situation, right? We don't have to just prioritize their perspective. What is it that we want them to see, feel, and experience in this minute? Not necessarily, they don't need to know all the backstage stuff. They don't need to know that, the guy used to say, like, you'd have those times when someone was delivering a washer and dryer, you used a third party and they didn't come, they didn't show up. And, when the resident would call and say, where is my washer dryer that was supposed to be here at noon? First problem is they called you to, ask. But second thing was to tell them, oh, well, the guy called and he had a flat tire and da 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 da. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the resident doesn't need to know the why. The resident needs to know, I'm so sorry. I hope this is inconveniencing you. We've had an issue and it looks like now they're going to be here on this time, whenever it is.
Yeah, all a
But
resident wants to know is that you're going to take ownership of
yeah,
whatever they're asking, whether it's a
yeah,
tour or they have a question about their ledger. They just want to know that someone's taking ownership. They don't need to know the details of why it was late. Sometimes it's relevant, but I think most of the time they really just want an answer to their question. And I
yep.
think we can keep it concise and keep it professional in that way. And I think it's really interesting because whenever I kind of train out this topic at our hospitality workshops, I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, and I kind of got my wish.
You sure
But I
did.
always wanted to write on whiteboards. And so when I travel, I bring whiteboards with me and I make everybody write on whiteboards the entire time because I want to live that dream. And so at the end of the training, what I do is I have everybody write down, like, I want everyone to write down one thing you've taken away from this. And every single time without fail, be the swan is on there at least one time. Most of the time
Awesome.
it's multiple times, but every single time it's at least one time someone remembered be the swan. And I think it's just a reminder that our industry needs to remember this because it's so easy to get wrapped up in the chaos of the day and the tasks at hand, but really it's the person in front of you that matters the most, and keeping your composure is really the best way to ensure that they have a positive experience.
Nicely put. Nicely put. And extra shout out for Katrina Green, your mentor. I love that. I always love and hashtag in all of my social stuff as women supporting women. So I love that you had a mentor like that who really gave you the hand up and laid the groundwork for you to be exceptional in this business too. So shout out to her and shout out to you for continuing with what you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I like number 9. We're wrapping it up with number 9. Give residents who are moving out a snack and water for the road. Yeah, I mean, great idea, right? I mean, it's a simple gesture. They're taking off. We're sorry to see you go. Maybe we'll hear back from you. We'd love to stay in touch. But yeah.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to do. It's really, someone's coming in, they're turning in their keys. It's an unexpected touch point.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're, especially, and another tip too is if you know where they're going next, if you know that they got a new job and they're moving to California, like, hey, here's a water and a snack for the road. Just wanted to say, I'm so glad to have had you here. If you ever find your way back, let us know. We'd be happy to have you again, but wishing you the best of luck in California, or wishing you the best of luck on, your new home if they bought a new house. But that water and snack for the road, it's just that extra touch point where you kind of get giddy about it and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. That's so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love it. And then number 10, which I also think is so great, and I think can be a great tip for so many of our listeners as well, is a field trip. So talk to us, tell us, what is this field trip like, and what can people, how can they do this? And then what can they extract from this experience?
Yeah, so this is an activity I challenge all of our teams to do, and I recently just did it myself. And the field trip is to walk into 3 communities with no appointment and note down how your experience was. So I think walk-ins is a really big thing in our industry that, again, sometimes we get so focused on that task at hand, all of the minutia that we have to do in a day. We're working on our budgets. We're sending this application. We're sending this lease. We've got so much admin to do that when somebody walks in unexpectedly, we kind of freeze up and we're hesitant to greet them. And I thought it was really interesting because when I did this activity, I went to 3 communities, and 2 out of the 3 definitely had that energy, where I felt like I was a nuisance. I was interrupting their day. They weren't happy that I was there. And then I went to one where I walked in and 3 people got up and greeted me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so happy to have you. Welcome." And it was such a difference in my overall experience that I knew that when I left those tours, if I was looking to move, first of all, the one who greeted me with 3 people, that tour from start to finish was absolutely excellent. So shout out to Aura in Venice, Florida. It was amazing. My leasing consultant was Rachel. She was incredible. She made me want to fill out an application, and I wasn't even moving to Florida, but now I want to, and I want to move there because of how I was treated. And I think that's just so impactful. It was such an impactful thing to take away from that. And one of the communities that I toured had the most robust amenities that I've ever seen in an apartment community. I was so impressed with that, but I was so unimpressed with how I was treated when I first walked in, right? So I walk in, and there's about a minute and a half where the manager and the assistant are just kind of chit-chatting in the back. I have not been greeted yet. I'm just walking around, kind of taking in the signage and trying to learn what I can. And then finally, I see a hand in the back, just kind of waving me back. Like, what do
Oh my
you,
God,
what do you
you're
need?
killing me. You're killing me that
I
this
know.
is even still happening in our industry, because I mean, it's like, I feel like sometimes we're training this, right?
Yeah.
We're teaching people. There's so many resources to understand the importance of this, but so to hear the fact that this is even still going on is just like,
Hmm.
it's killing me.
I know.
I
It
hate
makes you
this
want to
for
pull your
them.
hair out.
Yeah.
It does, but that's why it's so important for our leasing consultants to do it, our managers to do it. Because when you feel like that, when you're made to feel this small just for walking in a space, you never want to make anybody feel like that again. And so by doing it yourself, you really put yourself in the prospect's shoes, and you're able to say, wow, like this is impactful. And I've experienced it, and I don't want to be the person that's making other people feel this way. And with that one that had the most robust amenity package, and I wasn't treated very well, I would not have lived there, and I knew that. And I was like, man, that's such a bummer because this product is so nice, and it's got everything except for the management. The management was not there, and I knew that's half, if not more, of why you move into a place. And it really makes a difference. So what I want people to take away from this is really, no matter how someone got in touch with you, whether it was a walk-in or an appointment, or they're a resident and they have a question, they are your top priority in this moment. You're responsible for their experience in these next 30 minutes. So make sure that it's a good one. Make sure that you're putting the task aside and you're putting the person first. And it really just means that you're prioritizing their experience, not your workload. So it's a reminder of be the swan. And if you ever, I think, feel the need to justify your behavior, so if you say, I'm so sorry for rushing you, I just have, another tour in 15 minutes and 9 move-ins tomorrow. If you're saying that, you're justifying your behavior, that just means that the focus has shifted and you need to recenter and focus on the person in front of you. And I think that's just really important to notice. I was actually just on a trip to New York City a few weeks ago, which I absolutely loved. It was amazing. It was such a cool experience. And I was so shocked because I wasn't sure what I was going to get. New York City, you think hustle bustle, crazy culture, just work, 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 like really fast paced. I kind of experienced the service to be like that too, like get in, get out, like get your stuff done and then move on. And I was shocked because every place I walked into, whether it was a museum, a theater, a restaurant, a shop, a public bathroom, every single place I was treated with the utmost care and respect. I've never experienced anything like it. I was like, wow, we need to get on this level. Everybody needs to go to New York City, take their notes on service and hospitality, and then bring it back because I was just blown away. And my friend and I were talking about it. We're like, why is it so good here? We're like, well, it's dog eat dog. So if you're not kind to your customers, you're out. You've got 1,000 other people who want to come in and take that spot, take that building. And so I think there's a little bit more pressure there to have better experiences. But I'm like, the bar is so low right now. If you're going to 2 out of 3 communities and you're getting that poor experience at 2 and only the good experience at 1, we have such an opportunity to raise that across the board, raise those standards, provide that level of excellence and that level of hospitality that we expect for ourselves. We want to feel that way too. So we're part of kind of bringing that culture back. And I think we can do a lot with just these tips.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I love that. I love your example in New York too, because that really speaks to one of the things that I've always said too is that I think if we want people to deliver that higher level of service, it's important that they have immersed themselves in it themselves. They've experienced that level of service, because if they haven't, it's very difficult to explain, right, to someone what that higher level of service, that higher level of care, right, of someone really just wrapping their arms around you and making sure that you are taken care of at every single point along that journey. And if you haven't experienced it, it's very difficult to train someone how to do it. And conversely, right, if you haven't gone in and really felt like, intimidated or something by an environment or the people in there or whatever, then you may not realize how subtle gestures or behaviors, or even how the time can tick by so slowly, when you're waiting in that clubhouse or whatever, and how that you might make someone feel. And, you would hate to make someone feel that way, but you wouldn't necessarily know or really get the full grasp of it without experiencing it. So I love that notion there for sure.
Yeah. So everybody go take that field trip.
Right. Take a field trip.
I promise.
Take a field trip. I agree with you. Well, Briana, it sounds like you guys at Thompson Thrift and a lot of your initiatives as well are really, really doing a great job to set the bar. I know Thompson Thrift has been doing an amazing job growing and really cultivating and sustaining an amazing culture for the teams there. And it sounds like you guys are also really helping to drive excellence and really that excellent bar of customer experience across the board. So I'm really looking forward to keeping an eye on that and how you guys continue to evolve. And maybe if you're willing, maybe share some more of those ideas or things that you guys, some success stories or creative ideas with us some other time down the road as well. I think our viewers would really enjoy it. And I feel like we've given them some really great takeaways today.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a laundry list, so you just let me know.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It's been great, and we'll hope to keep in touch on that and maybe bring you back another time on CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks everyone for joining us. CX Unplugged, where we have redefined who your customer really is. Join me next time to hear more missteps and masterful manifestations in the world of multifamily customer experience. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network.